Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're back talking Kenobi episode 5, and I just have to say, this episode was honestly, for me, on a different level than anything we've gotten from this show so far. This was a perfect episode for me. Kind of spoiled my rating already, but honestly what this video is going to be is pretty much just me fanboying, speculating, talking about everything that we got in this episode, trying to explain my thoughts on why I think this was a perfect episode. We'll be starting from the beginning, talking about everything that happened up until the end. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to like it. Please comment down below what you guys think on this episode. Were you guys disappointed? Which I don't really see how. Maybe in a couple of things. I see people nitpicking already, and I actually do agree on some of those things as well, as you guys will see. So comment down below what you guys think. Subscribe if you guys are new. But let's talk about Kenobi episode 5. Alright, so the first thing we got to talk about were those goddamn flashbacks. They were so good. Something that a lot of fans have been waiting to see throughout this whole entire show. And I'm so happy we finally got to see it. I do think this should have been included sporadically throughout the series. I think it would have made a lot of fans a little bit more happier in terms of how they view the series as a whole. If we got scenes like this from the very beginning, I think it goes a long way in terms of just creating a cool narrative for both these characters. And these flashbacks, I love the hell out of them. It looks like they take place around Attack of the Clones. Anakin does have both hands. This was before their fight with Dooku at the end of Attack of the Clones movie. But this was a great training duel as we see Obi Wan Kenobi and Anakin sort of fighting as they do some sort of, dual training on Coruscant. And this will foreshadow some things to come when Vader and Kenobi do fight again. And I do believe that we will see one more duel between these two characters by the end of the series. And I think that the training that we see in this episode will come into play in terms of themes, in terms of Vader's aggressiveness, sort of always, being the thing that makes him lose a duel, and then Kenobi also being able to outsmart him, which I think will be really cool to see. And so after this, I love how every single time we saw these flashbacks, we would transition right to Vader as we see Vader is thinking about these flashbacks. That's why we got to see them. It's all happening in his head. And I just love the transition of seeing the duel, and then all of a sudden we just cut to Vader in his helmet, breathing. And we can tell, Vader doesn't even need to speak, but we can tell, what sort of emotions he's probably thinking of as he's reminiscing on this duel that he had with Kenobi. But after this, he gets interrupted by Reva, and he names Reva the Grand Inquisitor. Now, this will obviously change by the end of the episode, but I thought it was a cool thing to sort of throw us off here as he names Reva the Grand Inquisitor. It just goes to show you that Vader had this whole thing, he was playing Reva, he was playing the audience, and I just love that they had Reva be named Grand Inquisitor to make the audience be like, what's happening here? What happened with the old Grand Inquisitor? Is she going to be the Grand Inquisitor now for the rest of the series? What's happening? And I did not expect, the double turn that happens by the end of this episode. After this, we get even more flashbacks. Like I said, this is where it kind of shows Anakin gets super aggressive with Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan's sort of trying to train him and telling him that he'll always just be a Padawan unless he's able to control this aggressiveness, unless he's able to control that need for victory. After this, we see that Vader is closing in on Obi-Wan's position, as we know that that tracker was in Leia's droid, and Vader's now closing in. Obi-Wan sort of senses his presence, and he knows that Vader's coming for him. I love seeing Obi-Wan's vulnerability in these scenes, as he sort of knows that Vader is coming to him, and you can just see the expression on his face as he sort of thinks about what Vader's mindset might be. He wants Obi-Wan, and he'll do whatever it takes. He'll kill all these people to get to him. And you really see that on Ewan's face, on Ewan McGregor's face, the acting that he does with his character in the show. I think he's doing a terrific job. I really do. And one thing for the flashbacks, you can tell that Hayden Christensen is older, that Obi-Wan is older. They probably use some sort of CGI to de-age him. I had no problem with this. This isn't a fault. I think people can easily overlook the age difference. I don't think that should be talked about at all. Nobody should be nitpicking the CGI in those flashbacks. I think we should just be happy that we got to see those flashbacks at all. I also love how we see in the beginning of this episode, Obi-Wan going back to his Jedi ways. He's helping people, where in the beginning of the series, we saw that he wasn't helping people at all. He was very low-key. He was against sort of the Jedi ways, saying the Jedi is dead. Even another Jedi came to help him, and he turned him away. And because of him turning him away, he died. And I think that plays into his character growth in the series, as now he's willing to help people. He's willing to put his life on the line in order to save others. And I think that was just a great character development to see in this episode. We then get to see that Obi-Wan has a message from Bail Organa. He sort of hides away so no one else can hear. And Bail tells him that, he hasn't heard from Obi-Wan. So if he doesn't hear from him in a while, then he probably suspects that they died or the mission has failed and Leia's gone. and he would go to Tatooine to help Owen with the kid, which is Luke, right? I'm happy that they acknowledge Luke in this episode. They really haven't really been giving him any sort of, not only screen time, but even acknowledging his presence. Like, Obi-Wan just packing up all his stuff and going off to save Leia is cool, and it's something that he would have done, but I would have liked to think he would have gave some extra protection for Luke. So I'm just happy that at least in this episode, they gave us as the audience some sort of reassurance that, yes, we didn't forget about Luke. You know, like, we will send Bail Organa there, and he will be protected. You know, Obi-Wan's not just leaving him, you know, for dead, you know. And so I'm happy that they acknowledged it, but it is still one little nitpick I have that they did, exclude Luke from this show in a way. Even though in the last episode, he'll probably have a shit ton of screen time now, as we'll see, right? But after this, we see that Obi-Wan wants to confront Reva. You know, the stormtroopers come down. I love the look of this episode, seeing all the stormtroopers, seeing Reva walk through them, you know, all the civilians trying to defend. It was a cool, you know, sort of reminded me of The Last Jedi at the end, you know, how it's like, the whole Empire is coming for them, and they need some sort of distraction so that the rest can escape. Sort of remind me of the same sort of like story plot point. But I love the conversation between Obi-Wan here and Reva as they're speaking through the door. And this is where it gets confirmed that a lot of people speculate that Reva was the youngling in the first flashback, and it's confirmed here that she is. We get a cool, sick flashback scene of her in the Jedi Temple as a youngling. We see Anakin, you know, his dark robes, blue lightsaber. He kills the younglings, which, you know, it reminded me when Star Wars Theory, who I'm sure you all know, he's like the biggest Star Wars YouTuber, put out a tweet a while ago saying he wants a scene like this. He wants to see younglings being killed, or Padawans, or Jedi Knights, and people just blew it up and was like, this guy wants to see Anakin kill kids, like, that's so sick of him. Well, the show pretty much just showed us that in a more graphic way than I'm sure he probably would have even wanted to see. But, you know, I think it just creates that aura around Vader that this guy is pure evil at times. Like, he's killing children. That's like the most diabolical evil thing that you could do. I know a lot of us sympathize with him. You know, he is the greatest movie villain of all time. There is like this badassery sort of like thing around him that I love. I adore Vader as a character so much, you know, but also is nice to remind us like, yo, this is a bad dude. You know, we probably shouldn't sympathize with him as much as we do, but it's just something that us as humans are drawn to, like that, you know, that villain-esque mindset of Vader, which I love as a character. And for a writing story point, you know, mindset, like, it's a great movie villain character. So not only is Reva confirmed to be the youngling, and we see that Vader killed her other youngling friends, it's confirmed that she's not working for Vader, she's hunting him, is how Obi-Wan puts it. And Reva sort of confirms this, you know, asking Obi-Wan why he wasn't there to save them. And Obi-Wan sort of like thinks about it, and he can't really get an answer because then Reva, you know, puts the lightsaber through the door. This built up Reva's character so much. I was someone that, I didn't love Reva's character. You know, this goes without saying that this is nothing against Moses Ingram at all. And I think in this episode, she really plays the character well. And it sort of explains a lot of those questions that we had about Reva. So it makes her character a lot more in-depth, makes it a lot more complex, and it makes for a Reva series, which is supposed to be rumored, a lot more interesting if that's what they want to do. And I think after this episode, I've really, like, her as a character, Reva, went up a ton. Like, I just needed to see more of her in order for me to get on board with her. You know, it's sort of like Rey in a way in the sequel trilogy. I think that they just did Rey wrong because the focus of that series or that trilogy should have been on legacy characters. Should have been about Luke, Han, and Leia, and Rey, Poe, and Finn should have, you know, seamlessly been flowed into the story behind the backs of legacy characters. You know, just having it about Rey, it does feel like they're sort of force-feeding us something that we don't want. And I think that's how a lot of audience members felt with Reva. Like, just having her being the main villain and not letting Vader have his screen time, it got them upset. But I think with this episode, we have a perfect balance of Vader really being like the main menacing guy, you know, and has like this elaborate plan that we didn't see coming. You know, we have the badass scene that we'll get to by the end. And Reva was sort of like, you know, the behind-the-scenes villain, like the second villain to Vader, but has a lot more complex story around her, you know, and it builds up that character beautifully in this episode, I really like to say. So I think if they just like showed that in the beginning, or us as an audience maybe have a little more patience for that character, it would have gone a long way towards like the hate that character's been getting. So I think a lot of people are going to like her character a lot more now after learning that she was a former Jedi, even though we already sort of knew that. But actually seeing the flashbacks, actually getting some answers, you know, and what will happen in the future of this episode that we're about to discuss, I think it just builds up that character a lot more. So like I said, after this, we have like this big battle between the stormtroopers and Reva versus the civilians. Obi-Wan as like they're fleeing away and they're trying to run away from them. I thought it looked great, seeing Obi-Wan just blocking all the bullets, like stormtroopers coming at them, like the fight choreography and everything. I think was really well done. Even though I know the Imperial spy girl who I forget her name, who ends up dying in this episode, she does do some weird clunky things with the stormtroopers where it doesn't look realistic. I did have a problem with that in the last episode where she smacks the helmet on the stormtrooper. Everyone was making fun of it. I do think it's dumb, and I know people's argument was saying that Star Wars has always been like that, but I think it's only been like that because it was like chained to its time. You know, like a lot of movies in the 70s and the 80s, the fight choreography wasn't like what it is or what it could be today. So I don't think we should make stuff silly just because previous movies were like also silly. I think we've sort of grown in terms of like cinema and film that we could like make stuff good, you know? So I mean, but that doesn't take away from the episode for me at all. I didn't complain about it. I didn't really think about it honestly until I saw someone else say it. But it could be one little nitpick that people have. But after this, we see Leia going to the vents. This sort of reminded me of anyone that played Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker. No, not the Skywalker saga. The original Lego Star Wars, the complete saga. It was only little Anakin Skywalker who could go into the vents. And I just thought like it was a little bit of a callback to that game as Leia goes into the vents to help with whatever she does. I even forgot what she does. But I thought it was nice. It was like a nice little callback that like a small person can only go into the vents. Sort of reminded me of the Lego game. But after this, we get some things with the Imperial girl that I was talking about, who's a good guy. She sort of sacrificed her life. Good little scene, sort of drawn out. Like I don't think a lot of us really cared about that character too much. I only liked her a lot because I remember her as an actress in Game of Thrones, and I liked that character. But it was cool. It was a good fitting end for her to sacrifice her life. She says, "May the Force be with you," or whatever, and then she dies so that everyone can escape. I thought it was a good fitting end for that character. We get even more flashbacks of training. We got a lot of flashbacks in this, and I think they're not the Clone Wars flashbacks that people wanted, but they could even be better flashbacks. For me, I completely loved every single time they were on screen. Absolutely loved it. But after this, Obi-Wan realizes that Vader only wants him, so he surrenders his lightsaber to the civilians, which was sort of a questionable decision. For him to give up his lightsaber and then go to like confront Reva and Vader. But he says that there are other ways, which also reminded me of Luke in The Last Jedi. How when he fought Kylo Ren, he didn't use a lightsaber. He wasn't even there. Sort of remind me of the line that Obi-Wan says, how like there's other ways to fight besides lightsabers. So people hate The Last Jedi, people love The Last Jedi, so we'll just keep moving on from that conversation. But then once he confronts Reva, he tries to bait her into turning on Vader, which is what she'll do in a little bit. He sort of says, like, Vader's going to come in and kill these children. Are you really going to let him do that again? And I thought this was good strategy of Obi-Wan to try and play into that. But after this, we see, stormtroopers take Obi-Wan away. He's able to sort of like fight them off. They don't show it, and he's just able to like run away. Vader comes down. We get one of the most badass Vader scenes ever. Remind me of the Force Unleashed video games. When Vader comes down, he sees the transport ship with everyone in it flying away, completely force stops it, pulls the ship down, starts taking it apart. I thought it was beautifully filmed as like the pieces of it are flying like past the camera, shows the full strength of Vader, which is what I've been wanting to see from the show. Just one scene, just give me something to really show the full power that Vader has at this time. The comics show beautifully how strong and powerful Vader is during this point. Like, this is peak Vader. And I feel like throughout this show, we haven't really gotten to see Vader really use his strength to like the way that I think he should. And in this moment right here, him fully stopping that giant ship and bringing it down was perfect. As it turns out, it's not the transport ship. It was like the transport ship was like behind the other ship, which now that I think of it, like, let's say the real ship is here, the other ship is here. This ship flies off and Vader stops it. Can he just look and see like the other ship right there? I didn't even think about that while watching. I just thought like, I didn't complain about it, but I saw it as like Obi-Wan outsmarting Vader. Just like in the duel when Anakin like kicks away the lightsaber, and that was like his aggressive side, and like he thinks he's won, but then Obi-Wan uses the Force and he's able to outsmart him. Sort of like the same thing happens here. They even show I think the training when Obi-Wan says, you'll just be a Padawan, and then Vader sort of thinks about that as he's watching the other ship go off, that Obi-Wan outsmarted me again. And I think, the next time that they duel, Vader's going to learn from his mistakes here. But it is actually like weird. Does anyone have an explanation of why Vader didn't just see the other ship right behind the other one? Was he just so distracted by using his power that he couldn't like see out of his peripheral vision like another giant ship? I don't know. I didn't think about that while watching. I just thought of it now. So they scoot off. Like they fly away. Now we see Reva come down in a perfect Sith fashion, or like maybe in her eyes this isn't like a Sith thing, more of like she's doing something good. She tries to kill Vader. Vader stops the lightsaber with the Force, and there's like it's a duel in the beginning, but Vader doesn't even have his lightsaber. He's literally just toying with her. He's dodging, using the Force on her, completely toying with her. She goes with the double saber, she's trying to twirl it around. Vader just uses the Force to like stop the blades, break them apart. He's holding both sabers, throws the other saber to Reva, pretty much just saying like, go one-on-one with me if you want. They have the duel. He's able to just like mess with her again, take the other lightsabers, holding down 2 double red lightsabers. Like, I think this was honestly some of the sickest lightsaber choreography I've ever seen in Star Wars. I think it was just a perfect way of Vader. Just seeing the power level between Reva and Vader. Like, Vader's on a different level right now than anyone else. And I just love to see him just fully toying with someone. I know we did sort of see that with Obi Wan, but it wasn't as much as here. Like just him dodging, him dismantling the lightsaber, and then he stabs her. And I thought they killed Reva, right? And I see a lot of people complaining that Reva should be dead. Like Qui-Gon got stabbed like that. Why isn't he dead? In Rise of Skywalker, Kylo Ren gets stabbed like that from Rey. Now, obviously, Rey uses Force healing, which is fucking stupid. But it's like, why doesn't Reva die here? And I think just the explanation is like the dark side. You can easily, not easily, but you have a better time healing because you're tapping into, the dark side of the Force more. So certain things may not hurt you as much as like a light side user would. That's the explanation I'm putting in my head. But I do agree, like Reva probably should be dead, but I do want to see more of her character now. I really do. After this episode, I would like to see more, but before this episode, I didn't really care for her too much. But Vader calls her a youngling, so he knew that whole time who she was, and he sort of says, like, you think I really didn't know? Which I love this. It sort of shows, like, that Vader is smart here. He's not, like, the whole time, actually, throughout the whole show now, every single time people complain about him being, nice to Reva or, like, being too lenient on her, like, he was just waiting for the right moment, I think. And that's sort of, like, what he's been doing throughout this whole show, even with Kenobi with the fire thing, which I still don't agree on. I still think he should have maybe done a little bit more. But he just wants Obi-Wan his full strength. Like, he was toying with them. It's fine, it's a not a playful Vader, but like a meticulously strategic Vader. As we see the Grand Inquisitor actually come back. He didn't die because he has 2 stomachs, so I guess one stomach got stabbed. And he takes the Grand Inquisitor pin that Vader gave Reva from before. He takes it, and he's, our Grand Inquisitor now that we see in Rebels. And everything's fine. All those complaints we had about, Grand Inquisitor, where is he? Like, he's not dead, obviously. Are they going to break Rebels canon, which they obviously weren't. That's all put away now as the Grand Inquisitor is back. I thought it was great. I thought it was so good. And then we see at the very end, Reva finds that hologram that one of them dropped, which was the Bail Organa saying that he'll go to Tatooine to look over the kid. Then we see the last image of Luke on Tatooine, and the episode ends. So it's concerning, like, this hologram and Luke and stuff. It does create like this weird what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, it's not breaking canon or anything like that. It's just weird to think that, like, someone else knew about, Luke being on Tatooine. But Reva probably doesn't know that, like, Luke and Leia are brother and sister. She probably doesn't even know, like, the kid's name. He just says, like, the boy on Tatooine. And she just knows that Obi-Wan's close with Luke. But what's her game plan now? Like, if she's not working for Vader anymore, is she still trying to go after Obi-Wan? Like, what's her mindset right now? Because I feel like she's done with the dark side now. She just got stabbed by Vader. Her whole plan just pretty much failed. It blew up right in her face. So, like, what's the other alternative for her? To go back to the light side, to go to Obi-Wan and, beg to train her, or to, become, like, a middle Jedi? Like, what's going to happen with this character now? Like, her finding the location of Luke, finding that hologram, like, what's the point of that? To try to win back favor for Vader? Like, does she even want that? Does she still want to become the Grand Inquisitor? Does she think that finding this boy and bringing it to Vader is going to help, Well, I guess, kind of would. It would explain Tatooine and maybe Vader going to Tatooine now to get the... See, like, Vader can't know about the boy. Like, at all. Like, I don't even think he should know that there's a boy in Tatooine that Obi-Wan's looking over. Because that just would cause so many questions in his head of, like, why is Obi-Wan looking over this kid? You know, like if he goes to if Reva goes to Vader and is like, this look at this hologram. Bail Organa knows Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's looking over a boy on Tatooine, and then Vader goes to Tatooine, knowing Obi-Wan's there, and like, no, it even says Owen, and he knows Owen is his brother-in-law, or is his brother-in-law, right? Yeah, pretty much his brother-in-law. Or no, is it brother-in-law or half-brother? Half-brother, something like that. Whatever, his relative. So he would think that the boy staying with them would be like someone close. He would connect the dots, so he can't even know this information. So I don't know what they're going to do. They obviously can't do that. And I have faith that they won't. I don't think that should be like a speculation. So yeah, anything you guys want to comment down about that, let me know. But my rating for this episode, it is a 5 out of 5 for me. I can't lie. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still getting giddy about what I just saw on screen. Just seeing the sheer power of Vader, like him with the red lightsabers going, the duel with Rebel was sick, bringing down the ship, the flashbacks, which is what everyone's been wanting. I think just in general, like the concrete story of the civilians running away from the Empire here. Obi-Wan, sort of thinking about Vader and the flashbacks and sort of like, he had a good character development here, trying to help people. I think it just all worked pretty perfectly. There's really not much more I could have asked from this episode. I think it just sort of like changed the game. And I wish that they included so many more elements from this episode throughout the series. I think it would be better liked if, we had flashbacks, we had more screen time with Vader, showing more of Vader's power, having more Reva moments where we know more about her character, or at least we have more hints than her just coming in and screaming and angry, and moments with her and Leia that didn't really work. Like I love Leia as a character in the series. I love her as an actress, the actress playing her. I love what they're doing with her, how witty she is, how like she's very quirky and like sort of aggressive with some people. Like it's a perfect depiction of Leia's character. But like we had too much of her throughout this series when I don't think we should have. It should have been more of an Obi-Wan thing and an Anakin thing. And we got one more episode now. It better be an hour long. All I'm hoping for is maybe a duel between Vader and Obi-Wan. I'm hoping for Qui-Gon. We need to see Qui-Gon, either Force Ghost or Force Voice, just talking to Obi-Wan. And honestly, I'll be satisfied with that. I'm sure they'll plug in some other story points, to wrap things up. And then we'll talk about the series as a whole in that video and what I think maybe, then we'll talk about this season as a whole and like what our actual thoughts on it, But for right now, I have to say this episode was amazing. I can't wait to talk about it with you guys and see what you guys thought of it. But I honestly think this was something special. This was amazing for me. I really think it was awesome. So comment down below what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to like it. Please subscribe if you're new. But I'll see you on the next video. Have a great rest of the day.